So this won't be a highly technical video, but there are some important points that this conversation about global warming might gloss over, I think, in important ways, or at least not have a good lens on. So the technicalities of this are over my head. I'm not, I'm not a climatologist, not a specialist in that field. But there are, it seems, historically, major worldviews that we tend to hold. And when looking at this in a deep way, we do tend to fall into patterns of speech and thought and action in relationship to the group of people we're around and their associations and the way that they think and the way that they act. So there is a sense in which, especially through governance structures, these things can be manufactured and augmented in a big way, in ways that we maybe haven't really come to terms with. So this gets down to some of the roots of this idea, and that's akin to what Noam Chomsky, whatever you think of him as a person, called manufacturing consent. So that idea, in some respect, at least the way I'm going to frame it here, is that when you play a game of cards, right? So you're playing a game of rummy with your friend. There are certain kinds of rules that you follow in that particular game, but they're not talked about per se unless you ask, okay, can I play four of a kind? And the other person will respond. And, so there is this set of rules that we have agreed upon in major regards as to how the game is and ought to be played. Now, when you look at science, of course, we're trying to be objective. We're trying to be empirical. We're trying to get the data right. And there is a sense in which we can do this in better and worse ways. And we want to, and usually ought to, probably trust people that have been in particular fields of study with great regard. These people have dedicated their lives to certain pursuits, and they ought to be generally respected for the dedication. However, when it comes to political realities, there's lots of reasons to worry a little bit about the intentionalities behind, or the integrity behind the individual, and what the agenda that they are tending to push. This is in part why I'm such a big fan of blockchain and decentralized governance and these sorts of things. But when it comes to this, we see a heavy hand, it seems, in the political realm as to how this debate is being framed. Just think of probably the most prominent figure in the field is Al Gore, and he is huge in the political sphere. Of course, the IPCC have many scientists, and I don't want to disregard what they're saying, but again, what I'm just trying to point out here is that gerrymandering of ideas is a potential that you ought to hold without, poo-pooing it too much, because there's a history of this, and the augmentation of self-authoring thought, if nothing else, seems to have grown in the last, not so much maybe in the last 10 years, but through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I'd say particularly. I think there is a far more vibrant group of autodidactics now that are knowledge pursuers, wherever that may lead, and sometimes outside the bounds of the different associations that are socially sound, that are tending to be regarded highly within the social circles that you mingle within. So I'll leave it at that. Nothing in particular, and I do mostly honestly remain an agnostic on this particular topic, because the science is above my head. There's certain things I think I understand, but we'll just leave it at that, if you will.